Hey HTDA and welcome to Dune Spice Wars. I'm not entirely sure whether to call this game a real-time strategy game or a 4X game, because honestly it has elements of both, but either way it's really enjoyable. I've actually played it for quite a bit now and I figured, well, why not make a little episode about this, or maybe a couple of episodes. Now this episode specifically is going to kind of show you some gameplay about the Fremen. And the goal of this episode is actually not just to show you some gameplay, but also, if you're interested in this game, to show you the early game strategy. Because honestly, regardless of which faction you play, the kind of early game strategy is the same, and honestly overall the gameplay is sort of the same, although the factions do play differently, so there's little tweaks to that. But without further ado, let's start some gameplay. Now you have the Atreides, who are mostly aimed at kind of like a political victory type of gameplay. Like I said, it's kind of a hybrid between 4X and RTS, so you can actually win the game without actually fighting too much. The Harkonnen obviously are kind of the bad guys. If you've seen the movie or have played some of the earlier games that are quite old by now but really good, then you will know that these are the bad guys. We also have the smugglers, who are kind of like behind the scenes manipulating type of faction. To be honest, it's an interesting twist. And then we have the Fremen, who are basically the original inhabitants of the planet, and kind of like the resistance type of faction, you could say. But anyway, they are really cool. They actually get to have a little bit more units on average than the other factions, and you get to use the giant sandworms for your own transportation, so that's really cool. And you can also actually ally with the neutral faction that will be in the game, so let's check those out. Now, you also need to pick counselors. In the case of the Fremen, I really recommend that you go with Mother or Ramallo. That will actually show you where all the spices on the planet, which is the main thing you will have to collect in order not to go broke, and will allow you access to the Shai Hulud temple. I hope I pronounced that correctly. That gives you some interesting bonuses. Now, the other counselor that I suggest you pick is the Stilgar Ben Fifrawi. I'm happy I don't have to pronounce that more than once. And that basically gives you some authority, which makes it easier to expand your bases, since Spice Fields is something you want to be exploiting anyway. So this is really a nice little passive bonus. This one actually gives you some intel. It's not something I generally use myself too much, but it can be really interesting if you want to kind of go for a more spying type of gameplay. And the other last advisor is basically just one that buffs your armies a little bit, but to be honest, I didn't think it was too interesting. So this is what we're going for. You can see the bonuses here. Hegemony is something that basically is your score, your game score, you could say, and if you get it up high enough, you can actually win the game through that as well. But as you get this to a higher level, you actually get some bonuses as well. The thumpers are an item that we can use to transport our units across the map with worms. Really interesting. And at 10k we get some more information, and we are allowed to use these sieges. Let's go with siege. And you can basically upgrade them a little bit further as well. Now, in terms of difficulty, I'm leaving most of this at the normal level. Let's make sure we have everything enabled. There we go. All the victory types should now be enabled. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, you can't actually disable the domination one. I was like, why is this showing differently? I'll leave all the other factions in here as well, but I am going to... Alright, and here we are. This is our capital, main base, whatever you want to call it. As soon as we get to 2000 hegemony, we will be able to actually upgrade this, but right now this is basically just our main base that doesn't do anything other than be a pain in the ass for the enemy to kill, because as you can see, it has a lot of power, health, and armor, so don't be too afraid of losing your capital early on, because you can't, or, well, I guess in theory you can, but it's not going to happen. Now, first thing we want to do is use our little flying chopper over here, which is called an ornithopter, and we can use this to kind of explore the areas around us. Now, right now you can see that we have a spice field over here, so this is the first place we want to go. And this will actually allow us to explore and make sure that we know where we're going, what's in here, etc. Now, you can pause the game and orders, make sure you order things up and things like that. So if it gets too hectic, and this is again one of those reasons why I'm not entirely sure whether or not we should be calling this a real-time strategy game, because most strategy games don't really allow you to do this. Some of them do to some extent, but really, honestly, it doesn't feel like this is really an RTS, although it does definitely have some elements like that in it. So, anyway, as we explore, we are going to have to find out where to go. You can see this zone is continuing over here as well. There's actually nothing we can explore over here, but you see this rocky ground here. This is a huge indicator that this will most likely be a place where a little village will be at. Now, while we explore that, we are also going to queue up some military units. We want probably 1 warrior and 1 skirmisher. That is actually going to cost us some manpower as well as some gold. Solari in this case, that's what it's called. And we need to make sure that we don't run out of any of those resources. So Solari is basically just gold. It's a very all-round purpose type of thing. You can get more by selling spice. But we also need to use that spice in order to make sure we keep bribing the Spacing Guild. Each faction needs to do this in one way or another, but basically you need to make sure that you don't get into trouble. If you can't pay these amounts every month or so, you're going to get a huge debuff, and well, if you want to lose the game, this is a very good way to do that with not paying your spice bribes. This will go up over time. Right now they're asking for 150. That's likely not going to be a problem, but this will go up over time. Now, I'm going to unpause again. We also have plascrete, which is basically concrete, plastic, but a combination of those two things. And that will allow us to kind of build buildings. Manpower kind of speaks for itself. You use that in order to get new buildings. Get you manpower or units, things like that. You can also get militia in your towns. That will also cost manpower. And most importantly, we also have water, which we need to use to keep our armies alive. And we use that to keep our village, settle more villages. Then last but not least, we have authority, which is basically something that we use to take control of more villages. Now let's see, which other directions can we go into? We are definitely going to take this base first. And now we have 2 of our units. We are going to move them next to the village in order to attack it in a moment. As soon as your armies leave your own area, they will get a drain on their supply. That's the little, not the green bar, but the bar below that. Let's see. So we are going to see what these items are all about while we are attacking this village over here. Now, what are you doing? Are you struggling getting down from this thing? That's fine. We are going to attack these units in here. It's 2 versus 2, but we shouldn't have any issue conquering them because actually our base is also helping us conquer this specific village. So it's really nice and convenient. Now, we just discovered a special item over here, which we can use to either explore with our agents and then we'll get a boost to science, or we can send an ornithopter here and get some free spice. Either way, it's really good. But first things first, I do want to make sure that I know where we're going to expand next. So we're going to do that in a moment, but not right now. Now this base should be fairly easy to conquer, as you can see. There's only another unit left here, and we didn't take all that much damage, so should be fine. And usually most of these zones have like one special type to them. So for example, this one has rare elements, which we can use to make a special building in a village that will actually give us extra Solari, which can be quite useful. But I actually am hoping to find a zone verse that has a plascrete bonus. This is Deep Desert, so this is actually quite inconvenient that this is next to our base. Deep Desert doesn't really have anything useful other than the fact that if you move through this, you will get a huge debuff on your supply. So generally speaking, units will try to stay out of the Deep Desert. On the other hand, this does make sure that our base is really well defended, because no one will be attacking us from this side most likely. Alright, we can take control of this this settlement, and that will take a while to actually get going, but we should be fine. Now let's see what we have in this zone over here. In the meanwhile, what can we do? We actually, once we capture our first village, we can actually start doing a research as well. we will get spice as well, but we actually need to make sure that we get that started first. Also, we don't currently have any spice. I do think I'm gonna order up one more ornithopter because that will allow us to explore a little faster than we currently are. And there we go. This is a mineral deposit, which actually means that any plascrete factory we build in this zone will actually get us 50% extra production. And that is really nice indeed. All right. Okay, and now we have this set up. I'm just going to pause the game quickly again. The first thing we want to do here is build a spice collector over here. That's a little building that we can put pretty much anywhere we want. Doesn't really matter generally where you place these things. And that will allow us to start extracting spice from this spice field. So that's a first priority type of thing that we're doing. Now we have access to this village. We can actually start healing our units as well. As you can see, the health is ticking up. And I think the next thing that we're going to do is go for this village over here so we can get access to the plascrete. So since everyone is healed up, let's just move over there. Pretty sure there's going to be a village over here. And we can actually get some free hegemony from exploring this with our units after that. Where else do I want to send this ornithopter? I think we actually have an overview already of where the other spice fields are, and we have one pretty close to us actually. So I think we're going to build into this direction one way or another. So let's see what we can find over here. Maybe this zone could be interesting to kind of block this off. Once again, we have deep desert here as well. We're kind of blocked in with deep desert on all sides. It's good from a defensive point of view, but I'm not entirely sure how happy I am about this. You can actually put your ornithopter to auto recon. I'm just going to do that for a moment just to make sure I'm not wasting any time on those. And we'll have two in a moment anyway, so they will go around and explore. We just unlocked the development research as well. You kind of have your spy political type of technologies over here. We have kind of, not entirely sure what to call this. These are kind of supply and survival type of things, I suppose you could call them that. Then we have economic items over here, and we have military items over here. And the further you go down this technology tree, the more expensive it's going to be to actually research things. But yeah, I think that kind of speaks for itself. First of all, I'm going to go for the local dialect studies. This will make it easier to annex villages because we basically get a 15% discount. And then the second thing I'm going to do is make sure we are going to get, I think, that's actually a good question. What is the next thing that we're going to go for? This is actually an interesting technology because it will actually buff any village that you have with only one item in it. And you get knowledge per controlled village as well. This is a pretty significant buff. But 50% reduced construction costs is huge as well. So I'm going to go for that first. And then, let's see, I'm actually going to go for this technology as well, because that will actually allow our agents to be a bit more productive. And that will take care of that for a moment. So, doing pretty well. We are going to attack our second village now. And once again, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now, these skirmishers actually do AoE damage, so the fact that these two are standing close to each other will make it even easier to take care of them. The warriors are kind of a bit more defensive, tanky type of units, so these ones, as you can see, actually go down in health pretty quick. So we're just going to move these out a little bit. We might actually have to withdraw them if they take too much damage, but I think we should be able to just make it in time, considering the second units should go down a lot faster than the first. We can actually construct more military units, but right now we don't have a huge surplus of manpower or Solari for that matter. And you really want to make sure you don't overdo it initially. We can already take control of this second village as well, which is what we're going to do. And then once we get access to it, we are going to build a plascrete factory over here. So now we have control of this second village, and like I said, we are going to build a plascrete factory here, and that will now produce 45 plascrete because we have this special buff in this area. So this is a very efficient way. Plascrete is pretty much free to build. It has an upkeep of plascrete, but it will also be producing plascrete, so no reason not to build that. In this village over here, what we're going to do is we are going to be building some water production, because as you can see, we're down to 4 water. And let's say we actually discovered this over here. If you click on one of these, you can see what you will need in order to actually take control of this village. And we need 5 water to do so. So water production is actually interesting. It's tied to wind power. So the more wind power in an area, the more water production. We have a 4 wind power area over here. We actually have a 5 wind power area over here. So that's actually a really good place to build some water production. And that is exactly what we're going to do once I remember what it is. Oh, actually we need some more plasticrete in order to do that. So we'll have to wait a few moments before we can queue this up. The second thing that we want to do once we have enough manpower is actually put another crew in our harvesting team. Now with the Fremen, you actually don't have a spice collector type of vehicle moving around, which the other factions do have. So you don't have to worry about things like sandworms. But yeah, there's no but really. You can still add crew to that, and that will increase the production of your spice. And right now, if we look at their spice production, you can see we're selling some of our spice. So this is kind of a toggle that you can do to either sell or a certain portion of your spice more or less. Now what you have to keep in mind is that we are going to need 150 spice in 13 days. If you click on this on the spice report, we are currently expected to have 154 spice stocked up because of how we have set this right now, and we're going to need 150. It's cutting it fairly close, but I think we should be okay, especially if we can up the production in between as well. I'm not entirely sure that will be in time, but we shouldn't have too much trouble actually reaching that. Now you also get some quests for, it's kind of like the tutorial, it kind of suggests what you should be doing next. In this case we needed to construct a spice collector. We don't actually get anything for completing these events, but yeah. There was actually something here as well, something we could use to get hegemony, so let's do that, since our units are just standing around waiting anyway. And we're also currently exploring the other items on the map as we try to expand further onwards. Okay, so we are now constructing our wind trap. We have a plasticrete factory up and running, so as you can see we have a pretty nice production of plasticrete at the moment, and we are currently exploring some of the random things on the map as well. Now we actually have a rare area over here that has a special bonus that will actually double our plasticrete factory resource production. That's huge, and it will also give us a very significant bonus to hegemony, so that is something to take into account. This is an interesting resource to our area to capture. Now apparently the Harkonnen are actually right next door, and they already took control of this spice field, so we definitely want to make sure we grab this one over here as quick as we can. And then I'm honestly not entirely sure where we go from here. We might actually want to expand downwards and see if we can grab this one. We have 3 spice fields, so we are in a very good position. Even just having 2 is pretty good already, I would say. But yeah, there's actually something else we need to do, because we just got our first agent unlocked. Now agents you can use to kind of spy on your opponents and give you some more information about what they're doing. The place where you put your agents also determines what they are producing, because they will produce something. So right now, for example, if I put them in the Atreides infiltration, they will start producing intelligence, which you can use in turn to set up these special missions. Which basically gives you buttons over here that you can push to do specific things. So for example, poison the reserves means that you can increase the supply drain and prevent enemy armies to heal up in a specific area. So you can really use this either defensively or offensively. The type of unlocks you get also differ per faction. So yeah, that's something we can do. We can put them on the Arrakis infiltration, and that actually gives us some more authority, really nice, as well as intel. We can also get some more manpower intel production if we put them on the Spacing Guild, and we can put them on the Coam infiltration in order to get some more Solari production. So right now, as you can see, we are very low on Solari production, and we do have a pretty decent amount of manpower as well as authority. So I think we'll just go for the Coam infiltration. I really like putting that option first. Also, because what we're currently going to research next is the intelligence network after we completed this one, and that will actually give our agents on Coam infiltration a buff to Solari production, as well as, if we get those at some point, the Landsraad infiltration, where we get some more influence. So, all in all, it's a good place to be. Okay, so we're about to capture this village over here, no problem with 3 units. Oh, I already thought the third one was down as well, so I was wondering why that wasn't happening. So let's take control over that. Now, in the meanwhile, we're also building a processing plant over here that will solve our Solari issues. We are now discovering a few new research items, so we have now access to the intelligence network. I think we're going to go next for the Dune Wanderers. That will actually reduce the water upkeep on our units quite a bit, and as well as the 30% supply drain. Alternatively, we could actually go for local hubs. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure where we should go first. This could be interesting once we go to war, but we are not going to do that just yet. Yeah, let's actually just go for the local hubs first. Now, what else do we need to do? We are going to see what the vote is about. So right now we have a huge buff to authority production, or a huge decrease on costs for recruitment, or getting a buff to economy research. Now, this will be for everyone, and this is only for a selected faction. So what we can actually do is see if we can spend our votes on this, and see if we can get to this buff for ourselves. Now, if the Atreides and Harkonnen are spending their votes on themselves, that probably won't work, but we can try and see where that gets us. So we actually completed the capturing of this village. We are once again going to build a processing plant over here, because once again, more Solari is always good. We definitely need some more of that. And in this village, we are going to be building one of those special buildings that we unlocked from our counselor at the start, Ishalut Temple. This is going to boost 10% resource production in all villages in the region and its neighbors. You can only apply that buff once, so you don't need to place it in every single village. But this will actually cover all the existing villages that we have. So we'll get the buff to the manpower and the plastic grid over here. We'll get the buff to the manpower, water, and the we actually have a storm coming in over here. The storm is something we don't want to be in with our units. They will get killed really fast, so that's not a good thing. But yeah, like I was saying, we get a buff to the production in all our villages. Something else we might want to do is actually keep pausing that, sorry. Add another slot to this and build the building that will actually lower the upkeep in all the buildings in the regions across. So we also have these quests popping up. Once we discover the next new development, we'll actually be able to get 1000 Solari. That's a huge bonus. Or alternatively, if we do some of these crashed ornithopter rediscoveries, we can get a free ornithopter. But quite honestly, I don't think we need more ornithopters than we already have. We are also now discovered our first siege, and that means that, oh, it's actually right next to us. And what we can do is we can trade 10 water for 20 Solari, so that's actually huge. So it's quite a bit of an investment, 10 water, but like I said, we get a huge bonus in return for that, so that's really good. And on top of that, we are going to be able to form an alliance with them as soon as we get the relation level to 100. Once we get that, we can just click this button. We'll be in allies to them. They won't attack us anymore, so that's really convenient. And we actually get a huge buff to the militia power, so that will make it a lot easier to defend our little villages with these militia units that you can place in them to actually defend them. So that's going to be worth it. Even if it's that buff is not necessarily worth it, just getting the 20 Solari for 10 water, I think is. Because 10 water, if you look at the water production buildings, this only has an upkeep of 4 Solari. So basically we're trading a part of this wind trap's upkeep for a huge amount of Solari. So yeah, like you can see, we're getting a huge buff now. So this can really help us scale out of the game. Yeah, we also need to start thinking about increasing our army count a little bit, because we want to take this zone next. In order to do that, we will need a 93 or 40, but that's something we can take into account in a moment. But before we can do that, we are going to need some more units, and in order to build more units, we're going to need more money, but we're currently working on that as we speak. We have the processing plant up and running over here, so that's going to be really good. As soon as this completes, we should have another huge boost to our economy as well. There we go. And yeah, you can see some of the production going up. It will take a moment to actually register, but it should be quite significant, although it's only 10%, but 10% is still 10%, so that's really nice. Yeah, just need to wait around a little bit before we can continue on, but we do now have enough to, I think, produce another warrior. Or maybe we should go for a skirmisher. Let's go for that. So we now captured this village over here. We're currently trying to fight off the invaders that came from this siege. I mean, we are having pretty good relations with them at the moment. We actually are now getting 21 Solari instead of 20, so that's interesting. But yeah, they are still trying to attack us, but that's okay. In the meanwhile, we are going to be building a spice collector over here as soon as we actually get enough plascrete, which we don't have right now. So maybe the first thing we should actually build is a plascrete factory over here, just because we can, and we are going to need some more plascrete in one way or another. This shouldn't take too much to fight off, as you can see, and we are just going to have our units recover there for a moment, and we probably want to start moving them over in this direction, because we do want to make sure we get this zone. Remember, this will actually buff our processing plants, which we have 2 of, so that's quite significant, and that will basically ensure we have the same production as 4 of them. Even though we don't necessarily need the money, there's no such thing as having too much Solari, so yeah, that should be a very good thing to have. Well, hello to you too, Leto Atreides. He is warning us, do not leave all the land to us, for I assure you we will take it. Are you trying to tell me I should take more land? I'm pretty sure I'm already doing that. I'm not entirely sure what you're all about. We once again managed to actually successfully bribe the Spacing Guild, so we're good on that. And we actually now have 2000 hegemony, which means we have unlocked the option to start building stuff in our base, and considering we have a huge amount of Solari, we might actually just do that. But that will be for the next episode. There's a couple of exciting things actually coming up. There's a couple of these special regions that we definitely want to capture that will give us a huge boost. We have the Atreides actually in the corner over here. We now have access to our second spice field. All in all, really exciting, really fun stuff happening. We actually have this area over here that we could take after we take this one. That actually has a spice field in it as well. Wow. Okay, well, like I said, a lot of exciting stuff coming up. I really hope you enjoyed this first episode with the Fremen, kind of taking a look at this very interesting mashup between 4X and RTS. And let me know in the comments whether or not you have played this game, if you like this game. If you've ever actually played maybe the previous Dune games. I did, and I love them, so this is, I might be slightly biased towards Dune games because of that. But all in all, I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you have too. If you're still here by the end of this episode, you're awesome. If you want to be truly legendary, make sure you leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.